I've always liked lakes at night. There's something peaceful about the glassy water, the distant ripple of fish breaking the surface, the way the moon seems brighter reflected than it ever is in the sky. But peace is only the surface. Underneath, water hides everything. That night, I learned just how much it was late July, a humid night that refused to cool down even after sunset, but a friend of mine, Eric, had lent me his small cabin for the weekend. It sat at the very edge of Gray Marsh Lake, a place the locals avoided once the sun dipped. I'd laughed when Eric half-jokingly told me, "Don't go swimming after dark. People say the lake remembers." I figured it was just one of those small-town legends meant to spook outsiders, by the time I settled in. The sky had already turned black. I sat on the porch, listening to cicadas droning in the tree line, watching thin mist coil across the surface of the water. The moon was swollen, bright enough to paint silver streaks over the lake. I cracked a beer, leaned back in the chair, and let the night wrap around me. For a while, everything was normal: crickets, frogs, the occasional splash from something under the surface. But as midnight neared, the sounds changed. One by one, the frogs fell silent. The cicadas stopped. The entire lakeshore grew still, so quiet I could hear my own breathing. Then came the ripples. At first, just small rings spreading across the otherwise still surface. They formed about 20 yards out, perfectly round, widening and fading like something had risen and sunk back down. I leaned forward, flashlight in hand, but saw nothing. No fish, no birds skimming the surface. Just water moving with no cause. Another ripple appeared. Then another. Each one closer to shore. A chill ran through me. I told myself it was just fish, maybe carp stirring up near the surface. But when I flicked on a flashlight and shone it over the lake, the beam landed on something I'll never forget. A hand broke the surface just briefly, pale and dripping, before slipping back under I froze, staring at the spot. The ripples spread, then stilled. My rational brain scrambled for explanations. Maybe driftwood shaped like fingers, maybe my eyes tricking me. But my heart didn't buy it. My pulse hammered in my ears. I should have gone back inside right then. Locked the door, pulled the blinds. But some pull, curiosity, fear, something I can't explain, made me stay on that porch, staring at the lake. The mist thickened, crawling closer to shore. My flashlight beam caught patches of it swirling like smoke. And that's when I heard it, a voice that was faint, almost drowned out by the blood rushing in my ears. But it was there, a soft, pleading whisper. My name, Daniel. I nearly dropped the flashlight. The sound came from the water, from that same spot where the hand had broken the surface. Every instinct screamed to run inside, but I didn't. I walked to the edge of the dock, the old wood creaking under my steps, and leaned out over the water. The mist parted just enough to reveal something beneath the surface. A face, white, eyes wide open, lips moving though no sound came out. It was looking straight at me. I stumbled back from the edge of the dock, nearly tripping over a loose plank. My heart slammed against my ribs as I blinked hard, telling myself I hadn't really seen what I thought I did. But when I looked again, the water was calm, flat as glass, only the mist shifting across the surface like breath. The face was gone. I backed away to the porch, my flashlight beam trembling across the water. For several minutes, nothing moved. I tried to convince myself it was exhaustion, a trick of moonlight and fog on the surface. But then I heard the splash, not small like a fish, but heavy like something throwing itself out of the water and falling back in. The ripples fanned out, rocking the dock. The air felt wrong. It was thicker, damp, and tasted metallic like blood. The silence was total. No insects, no owls, not even the distant hum of cars from the highway. Just water lapping against the shore in uneven patterns, as though stirred from below. I told myself I'd had enough. I went inside, locked the door, and closed the curtains. The cabin was quiet, lit only by a weak lamp on the counter. I poured another beer, anything to shake off the adrenaline, and sat at the table. But the quiet didn't last. A tapping sound came from the glass window. At first soft, like rain beginning to fall. But it wasn't raining. I turned slowly, every muscle tight, 8T the window was a wet handprint. Fresh. The streaks of water trickled downward, glistening in the lamplight. I rushed forward and pulled the curtain shut, but not before I caught a glimpse beyond the glass. Something pale moved in the fog, standing at the waterline. Too tall to be a child, too still to be a living person. Its head tilted like it knew I was watching. I sat in the cabin with my back to the wall, every curtain drawn, listening. The tapping didn't stop. It shifted windows from the side to the back to the front, always slow, deliberate, like fingers brushing against glass. When I couldn't take it anymore, I grabbed Eric's old shotgun from above the fireplace. It was dusty, maybe not even loaded, but holding it gave me something to cling to. I stood there in the cabin's center, breathing hard, waiting for the next sound. That's when I heard the voice again. Closer this time. Clearer. Daniel. It wasn't outside anymore. It was inside. The voice drifted from the hallway that led to the back bedroom. That I froze, shotgun raised, though my hands shook so badly I doubted I could pull the trigger straight. My mouth was dry. I hadn't left the back door unlocked. I was sure of it. But someone or something was in there. Slowly, I stepped toward the hallway, the boards under my feet groaning. Each step felt heavier, as though the air thickened around me. The voice came again, a whispering plea. Daniel, help me. The bedroom door at the end of the hall was half open. A faint wet sound came from within, like water dripping onto it. I nudged the door wider with the barrel of the shotgun. The beam of my flashlight swept across the room. Empty, but the bed was soaked. Sheets darkened with moisture, pillow dripping as though it had been pulled from the lake. On the floor, puddles spread outward, yet no source of water was visible. Then, from under the bed, a pale arm slid out. Fingers stretched across the boards, nails long and broken. That I staggered back, aiming the shotgun, but before I could act, the arm withdrew. The puddles spread further, seeping toward my boots. Suddenly, the window shattered. Water poured in as if the entire lake had forced itself through a single broken pane. It rushed across the floor, knocking me backward. The flashlight flew from my hand and blinked out. That I in the pitch dark. The whisper rose to a chorus. Dozens of voices, layered and hollow, all say my name. Daniel, Daniel, Daniel. The water climbed higher up my legs, cold and heavy, dragging me toward the broken window. I clawed at the doorframe, gasping, but the current pulled with unnatural force, as if the lake itself wanted me back. In the rushing black water, I saw them, faces, dozens, pale and bloated, eyes wide open, mouths moving soundlessly, reaching, beckoning. I don't remember how I broke free. 1 second the water dragged me across the room, icy hands clawing at my legs, and the next I was on the cabin floor, coughing up lake water that burned in my lungs. The voices had gone silent. The puddles were gone too, as though they'd never existed. Only the broken window remained, glass scattered across the boards. That I stumbled to my feet, shaking and drenched. My shotgun was gone, lost in the rush. My flashlight sputtered once and died completely. I stood in the darkness, lit only by the pale glow of moonlight streaming through the broken window. The silence returned, but now it wasn't empty. It was waiting. I told myself I had to get out. I couldn't spend another minute inside that cabin. I found my keys, shoved on my boots, and pushed the door open. The night air hit me, sharp and wet, filled with mist rolling off the lake. The dock was barely visible. The water was unnaturally still again, like glass reflecting the moon. That I hurried to the truck, trying not to look at the lake, but I couldn't help myself. As I fumbled with the keys, I saw something standing at the end of the dock, a figure. Thin, impossibly tall, its body crooked like it had been broken and badly reassembled. Its skin gleamed, wet in the moonlight, dripping onto the planks below. The head turned toward me, though I couldn't see its face, only the suggestion of one, blurred and featureless. That I froze. The keys slipped from my trembling fingers, landing in the gravel. The sound was too loud in the silence, and when I bent to pick them up, the figure was suddenly closer. Not walking, not moving in any natural way, just closer, as though the distance between us had vanished. Panic roared through me. I scrambled into the truck, slammed the door, and jammed the key into the ignition. The engine coughed, sputtered, and died. Again, but it wouldn't catch. When I looked back up, the figure was standing directly in front of the truck, its hand pressed against the hood, leaving behind a slick, wet print. The metal groaned under its touch, denting inward as if crushed by immense weight. Then it bent forward. Its face came into view, waterlogged, swollen, eyes pale and cloudy, lips torn, jaw slightly unhinged. But worse than its appearance was the familiarity. I knew that face. It was Eric. Or what was left of him. My chest tightened. A scream caught in my throat. I slammed my hand on the horn, but the sound that came out wasn't a horn at all. It was a deep, hollow moan, the same chorus of voices that had filled the cabin, but amplified, rattling the windows. That I shoved the door open and ran. The forest pressed close around the cabin, and I didn't think. I just ran toward the trees, my boots crunching on dead leaves, breath ragged, the mist clinging to my face. Behind me, the wet, dragging footsteps followed. Slow, steady, but relentless. I didn't dare look back. Branches whipped my face, thorns tore my arms, but I kept going until my lungs burned. Finally, I stopped, crouching behind a tree, straining to hear. Nothing, just my own heartbeat, loud and frantic. I told myself I'd lost it. I almost believed it, until I looked down. At my feet, the soil was damp. A small puddle had formed, though no rain had fallen. Ripples spread across its surface, though nothing touched it. And then, from the shadows ahead, came the sound of water dripping, slow, steady, growing closer. Daniel, I couldn't move. The whisper curled around me like a rope tightening, pulling me toward the sound. The trees parted, and I stumbled into a clearing. Moonlight spilled across the grass, and in the center was another pool of water, perfectly circular, like a mirror sunk into the ground. The surface rippled point one by one. Faces emerged. Not just Eric, but dozens, maybe hundreds. Men, women, children, all bloated and pale, their mouths opening and closing soundlessly. Eyes fixed on me. Hands broke the surface, reaching upward, stretching toward me. That I tried to back away, but the earth beneath my feet softened. My boots sank into mud that hadn't been there seconds before. The ground sucked at me, pulling me closer to the pool, and from its center, something massive began to rise. Not a person, not even something human. A towering shape, its body formed of water and rot, pieces of flesh and bone drifting inside its translucent frame. Its head tilted, faceless yet somehow watching me. The voices merged into one, echoing from all around. You cannot leave. The pool widened, spilling across the clearing, swallowing the grass, the trees, everything. And I realized too late. The lake wasn't behind me anymore. It was everywhere. The water swallowed the clearing faster than I could run. I clawed at roots and branches, anything to hold on, but the ground crumbled in a black mud that sucked me downward. My legs vanished first, then my waist. Cold seeped into my bones, deeper than any winter chill, until I couldn't tell where my body ended and the lake began. That I screamed, but the sound barely left my throat before the water filled it. My lungs burned as I thrashed, but the surface above only pulled farther away, as though I were sinking into an endless ocean hidden beneath the forest. Shapes surrounded me in the darkness. Arms, torsos, faces drifting like broken dolls suspended in the current. They pressed against me, their swollen lips whispering words I couldn't hear, bubbles escaping from their mouths like secrets lost to time. Then I saw him again. Eric. His body floated only a few feet from mine, hair billowing like weeds, eyes open and blank. But when his lips moved, I heard his voice clearly in my head. You should never have come back. I reached for him, desperate, guilty, begging without words. But his form dissolved into the water, scattering into dozens of other faces that crowded closer. Their hands reached out, not to pull me down, but to hold me still, to make me one of them. Just before the last breath tore from my chest, I felt something sharp, a jagged edge which scraped my palm. Instinct took over. I grabbed it and pulled, Suddenly I was breaking the surface that I erupted from the lake, gasping, choking, my throat raw with water. I was back by the dock, not in the forest clearing. The moon hung over the still lake like nothing had happened. The cabin lights were off. The night was silent. I dragged myself onto the shore, coughing so hard I thought my ribs would break. My body shook with cold, but I didn't dare stop moving. Somehow, I found the strength to stumble toward the truck again. This time the engine roared to life on the first turn of the key. I didn't look back. The tires spat gravel as I tore down the dirt road, branches scratching the sides of the truck. Every bump, every shadow made me flinch, certain something was following. I didn't breathe until the forest gave way to open road, the lake vanishing behind me. Only then did I risk glancing in the rearview mirror. For a moment, I thought I was safe, but the reflection showed more than the empty road. I in the back seat. Behind my shoulder, water dripped steadily onto the upholstery. A pale hand rested against the seat, fingers swollen, nails dark. And just before I slammed on the brakes in panic, a voice whispered right into my ear, "You can't leave." The truck's headlights flickered. The engine coughed, then died. Darkness swallowed everything that I woke at dawn. The truck was parked on the shoulder of a quiet highway, far from the lake. The driver's seat was soaked, puddles forming on the rubber floor mats. My clothes clung to me, still damp, and my skin reeked of algae and rot. The keys were in the ignition. The tank was full, but I don't remember driving here. When I looked around, the road was empty in both directions. No cabins, no signs, just endless stretches of farmland and trees. I tried turning the engine over, but it was silent. Not even a click, and then I noticed the rearview mirror. Not my reflection, not the truck interior. It showed water. Black, rippling, endless. The lake that I tore the mirror down, but when I looked at the windshield, droplets streaked across the glass, spreading like veins. Water leaked from the vents, pooling at my feet, soaking my jeans. Outside, the highway shimmered. The fields bent and warped as if under waves. The world was drowning. I shoved the door open and ran. But no matter which way I went, the road sloped downward, leading me back toward a shore that shouldn't exist. I could smell it now, the same stagnant, earthy stench from my childhood. And then I saw it. The lake, waiting, impossibly vast, stretching into a horizon that swallowed the sun. The dock jutted out into the water like a tongue, and at the end of it, Eric stood, waving me closer with one swollen arm that I knew I shouldn't go. Every instinct screamed to run, but my legs betrayed me, dragging me step by step onto the boards. The wood groaned under my weight, damp and rotted, until I was face to face with him. He smiled, or tried to. His skin cracked at the corners of his mouth, leaking water. "It's time," he said. The lake surged upward, swallowing the dock, pulling me into its mouth once more. And as the water closed over my head, I realized the truth. There was no leaving. Not for Eric. Not for me. Not for anyone who stepped too close to this cursed shore. The lake doesn't let go. He only waits. I've always been drawn to lakes at night. There's a strange calm to the water, the way it mirrors the sky, the gentle lapping against the shore. But I've learned that calm is only a surface. Beneath it, the unknown waits. I arrived at the lake just as twilight began to fade. The parking area was empty, the forest around it dense and quiet. I carried only a backpack with a flashlight, a notebook, and a thermos. I had planned to sit by the shore, write a little, and observe. Nothing more. As the sun disappeared, a cold stillness settled over the water, the kind that presses against your skin and makes your hair stand on end. The lake reflected the sky perfectly, smooth and unbroken. Yet I could feel something watching beneath the surface. I set up a small blanket on the dock and sat down, trying to ignore the feeling. My flashlight lay across my knees, off to avoid ruining my night vision. I sipped from the thermos, the steam rising into the damp air. I could hear frogs, distant birds, the rustle of leaves in the wind. Everything seemed normal, yet it didn't feel safe. Then came the mist. It wasn't the usual kind that rises off water on a cool night. This fog rolled in quickly, thicker than smoke, curling like living tendrils across the dock and the shore. I leaned forward, watching as it moved, and realized it wasn't wind-driven. It was creeping, slow, deliberate, like it had intent. The air grew colder. My breath steamed in short, rapid bursts. My fingers, which had been warm from holding the thermos, went numb. I wanted to leave. I told myself it was nothing, just fog, just nerves. But when I looked at the water, I noticed ripples forming in a perfect circle, spreading outwards. There was no wind, no animal, just ripples, moving as if something beneath the surface had pushed up. That I reached for my flashlight and aimed it at the center. The beam hit nothing. No fish, no log, no sign of movement. Yet the ripples continued, widening slowly, rhythmically, toward the dock. My stomach knotted. I leaned closer to the water, squinting. Then I saw it, a shadow beneath the surface. Not a fish, not a bird. It was too large, too still, hovering just under the mirrored surface. My pulse raced. I wanted to look away, but my eyes were fixed, frozen in terror and fascination. The shadow shifted, slowly, fluidly, and then it rose slightly, breaking the surface. A thin, elongated shape, featureless, almost translucent, but undeniably alive. I stumbled backward, heart hammering. My flashlight fell, clattering to the dock, its beams swinging wildly over the water. The thing sank back under the lake immediately. The ripples faded, leaving the surface glassy once again. I shook, gripping my knees. My own voice came out in a whisper, a trembling question. "What are you?" No answer, only the mist, curling closer, thicker now, clinging to the dock like cold fingers. I wanted to leave, run, turn back the way I came. But the forest behind me seemed to stretch impossibly long, and the path vanished in shadows, and then I heard it. Not above the water, not from the forest, but inside my mind, a whisper, soft, wet, almost like it was bubbling from the lake itself. "You shouldn't be here." I stayed frozen on the dock for what felt like hours, though the fog made time meaningless. Every instinct screamed to leave, but my legs refused to move. The whisper repeated in my head, low and wet, echoing through my skull like water rushing in a cave. "You shouldn't be here." The mist thickened, curling around my arms and legs, chilling me to the bone. I tried to breathe slowly, but each inhale carried the damp smell of the lake. Earthy, decayed, and unnatural. My flashlight lay a few feet away, its beam swinging over the water, barely illuminating the waves that had returned, small and perfectly circular, radiating outward from a point I could not see. Then the ripples grew faster, faster than they could from anything ordinary. The center bulged. Something beneath the surface was moving deliberately, unseen but present, drawing closer. I gripped the edge of the dock, nails scraping the wood. My chest tightened. Suddenly the water erupted. A thin arm, pale and glistening wet, shot up from the lake. It didn't reach high, only a few inches above the surface, but it was enough. The arm bent unnaturally, jointed like it shouldn't have been, fingers curling toward me. I stumbled back, tripping over the blanket and scraping my knee, and it felt like the mist tightened, wrapping around my legs, slowing my escape. That I scrambled to my feet, heart hammering, and stepped off the dock onto the soft earth. The shoreline was unfamiliar. The fog obscured everything beyond 20 feet. Every tree seemed warped, elongated, the trunks bending slightly toward the water, as if leaning in to watch. My flashlight flickered, dimming to almost nothing. The lake shifted, rising slightly, though no wind blew. Small waves lapped at my boots, wet in my pants. And then I saw them, shapes under the water. Not full forms, not detailed figures, only pale silhouettes, moving in patterns too deliberate to be fish or debris. They swirled in the water, circling the dock, circling me. A whisper broke through the ambient sounds. Not just one voice, but multiple. Layered, overlapping, each syllable distorted, like a chorus speaking underwater. Come, join." I stumbled backward, chest heaving, tried to retreat into the forest. But the ground was no longer solid. Mud had formed beneath the grass, sucking in my boots, clinging to my legs. Every step was a battle. Every breath a reminder that the lake's presence was growing stronger. The water crept closer, rising against the dock, spilling over onto the bank. Shapes beneath the surface rose slightly, enough to glint in the dim flashlight beam. Faces, dozens of them, featureless but unmistakably humanoid. They hovered just beneath the water, hands stretching upward, mouthless mouths moving, as if speaking without sound. And I realized then that I wasn't just being watched. The lake wanted me, not just my attention. It wanted me in its depths, to join the shapes beneath the surface, to vanish like all the stories had said. Panic surged. I ran blindly, ignoring the mud and roots clawing at my ankles. The forest seemed endless, the mist pressing inward. Every turn led me back to the dock. No matter where I fled, I ended up here, trapped in a circle of water, fog, and shadows. The whispers became a roar. Join, join, join. And then, from the center of the lake, a column of water rose. Thin, twisting, glowing faintly with pale blue light, and inside it I glimpsed the faces again, all staring at me, reaching outward. My legs froze. My chest ached. And as the column pulsed with unnatural rhythm, I understood the lake was alive, and I was the next to be drawn in. I could no longer run. Every step back toward the forest brought me only deeper into the dock's circle, deeper into the lake's pull. The water lapped at my knees now, icy and heavy, wrapping around me like chains. The fog thickened, nearly blinding, curling around my arms and legs, whispering in my ears and my mind, "Closer, closer, belong." I tried to fight it. I shook my arms, stomped my feet, shouted at the water, but my voice came out drowned and hollow, swallowed by the mist. The ripples on the lake grew violent, radiating outward in jagged, unnatural arcs, and the pale column rose higher, twisting and writhing like a living thing. Inside it, the faces pressed together, reaching, mouths opening in silent screams that my brain somehow translated as calls for me to join them. Panic overtook me. I stumbled backward off the dock and fell into the mud. The cold seeped instantly into my bones. I clawed at the ground, dragging myself forward, trying to escape, but the earth itself seemed to shift. Roots wrapped around my ankles like snakes, pulling me toward the water. My hand struck something hard, wet, and I realized I had grabbed the edge of a submerged log. I held on, pulling myself free as best I could, but the water sloshed higher, splashing over my knees, waist, chest. The column of water exploded upward, sending a shower of mist and droplets in the night. Inside, I saw more than faces now. Shapes, torsos, arms, stretching and twisting, limbs bending in ways that should have been impossible. Some had long, thin fingers that reached toward me. Others were distorted, their heads split, eyes pale and unblinking. They moved like puppets under the water's control, floating, pushing, pulling. I tried to scream, to run, to do anything. My feet slipped in the mud, and I fell forward, face toward the water. The ripples collided with the dock, splashing me in the face. The column tilted slightly, like it had noticed me struggling. A hand broke the surface, long and pale, dripping water onto my face, and then another. They wrapped around my arms, cold, relentless. I thrashed, kicking, pulling, trying to free myself, but the grip was inhumanly strong. Every movement I made only seemed to draw more hands from the water. My heart pounded so loud I thought it might burst. The whispers became voices, all speaking at once, echoing in my skull. "You cannot leave. You belong here. Join us." I clawed at the dock desperately, my fingernails scraping wood, but it was no use. The water surged, rising to my shoulders, neck. I fought the instinct to scream, to inhale, to give in, but it was like the lake had fused with my body, weighing me down, cold and infinite. Then for a moment, I felt a strange calm, a quiet in the chaos. My eyes, flooded with water and fog, caught a glimpse of the column's center, a pale, featureless figure, taller than the rest, twisting in the light. It didn't move toward me. It simply waited, and in that instant, I realized the truth. This wasn't a lake. not just a body of water. It was a living prison, and I had stumbled inside. No tricks, no escape, no hope. The hands pulled tighter. I felt the water rise over my head. My lungs burned. My vision blurred. The last thing I saw before the darkness swallowed me completely was the featureless figure, hovering, calm, watching, and the faces swirling in the column, reaching endlessly toward me. Darkness consumed me. There was no sound, no air, no sense of where I ended and the lake began. I couldn't tell if my eyes were open or closed, if I was alive or already something else. The cold seeped into every vein, every nerve, erasing thought and leaving behind only fragments of memory. My home, my voice, the stars above the field. All of it felt like it belonged to someone else now. Then just as I surrendered, I realized I was standing. Not swimming, not drowning, standing on solid ground, but it wasn't earth. Beneath me stretched a vast, endless plain of black water, perfectly still, reflecting nothing. Above me, the same. No sky, no horizon, just infinite mirror upon mirror, until my mind spun with the enormity of it, and, in the distance, figures. Hundreds, maybe thousands. They stood motionless, half submerged in the still water, staring forward with hollow eyes. Their faces were blurred like smudged glass, their limbs thin and unnatural, bending at sharp angles. Each one whispered, though their lips never moved, a low hum vibrating through the endless plain that I looked down at my hands, and panic struck me. My skin was pale, bluish, translucent. Water dripped from my arms, though I wasn't wet anymore. I reached up to touch my face, but my reflection in the still black surface revealed nothing. No features, no eyes. Just a blank outline that I screamed, but no sound came out. The figures turned to face me. All at once, a synchronized shift, like marionettes pulled by invisible strings. Their whispers grew louder, forming words that burned into my skull. Now you see. Now you understand. You are one of us. I staggered back, though there was nowhere to go. Every direction was the same. The water rippled beneath my feet, and in the ripples I saw flashes, faces I remembered from the lake, twisted and drowning, their eyes wide and pleading. I fell to my knees, clutching my head, but the voices only grew louder, sharper, and then it came. The tall, featureless figure, the one I had seen in the column. It rose from the black water ahead of me, towering, skin white as bone, no mouth, no eyes. Yet I felt it staring, not at my body, at something deeper that I raised a hand, long and thin, pointing directly at me. The voices around me hushed, leaving only silence. You belong, it said, not with words, but with a crushing certainty that pierced into my chest. I tried to shout no, but what came out wasn't my voice. It was the same whisper, the same hollow resonance as the others. My throat betrayed me, and the sound of it shook me more than the silence ever could. The figure lowered its hand, and the ground beneath me began to sink. Slowly, steadily, I was drawn downward, my legs disappearing into the black water, then my waist, chest, shoulders. I fought, clawing at the air, but my hands only dragged through emptiness. The water swallowed me, but this time I didn't feel cold. I felt nothing. Just before the water reached my head, I looked around once more. The other figures watched in silence, and for the briefest instant, I thought I saw recognition in one of them. A flicker of humanity trapped deep inside, just as I now was, and then I was gone. When I opened my eyes, I was back at the lake. The docks stretched ahead, the fog swirled low over the water, and the night sky glittered faintly above. But everything was different. The world felt thinner, distant. The air didn't fill my lungs, it just passed through me. My reflection in the lake showed no features, just that pale outline that I understood. I wasn't free. I was the lake now. Another whisper in the fog. Another face pressed into the column of water, waiting for the next person foolish enough to wander too close at night. The dock creaked. Footsteps. Someone else had come. I never thought much about the lake at night. During the day, it was calm, harmless, a place where people fished, swam, or just sat on the bank with a beer. But something about it, after sunset, always unsettled me. The water grew darker than the sky, and the surface seemed too still, as if it were holding its breath. My grandmother used to warn me, "Don't go to the lake after dark. It keeps secrets you don't want to know." I laughed it off, of course. Stories to scare children, nothing more. That night, I was restless. My small town slept, the streets empty, windows glowing faintly in the distance. But I couldn't shake the urge to walk. My feet led me without thought, and before long, I found myself at the edge of the lake. The air was damp and heavy, carrying the smell of wet reeds and mud. Crickets sang, but their rhythm faltered as I approached, as if even they knew to be quiet here. I should have turned back, but curiosity has always been stronger than fear for me. I sat on the old wooden pier, the boards soft with rot, and let my legs dangle over the water. A faint fog began to spread, coiling over the surface in slow tendrils. The moon reflected in it like a cracked silver coin, and for a moment, I felt as though I were staring into another world. The silence deepened. The sound of insects faded altogether, leaving only the soft lap of water against the pier. Then, the strangest thing happened. I realized the water wasn't lapping anymore. It was moving in rhythm, pulsing almost as if the whole lake were a single living lung, breathing beneath me. That I leaned forward, squinting. At first, I thought it was a trick of the fog, but then I saw it clearly, a ripple spreading out in a perfect circle from the very center of the lake. No stone had been thrown. No fish had jumped. It was too deliberate, too precise that a chill crept up my spine. I told myself it was natural, nothing unusual. But deep down, I felt it. Something had noticed me. I tried to stand, to leave, but my body hesitated. It wasn't fear exactly. It was more like expectation, as if the lake wanted me to stay, to wait for whatever came next. And against all logic, I did. The ripple spread wider, reaching the pier. When it touched the wood, I swore the planks shivered under me, as though the water itself had a weight, a presence pressing upward. My reflection in the dark water seemed distorted, stretched, and I noticed something that made my throat tighten. I wasn't alone in it. Another shadow stood beside mine, and I jerked my head around, but the pier was empty. Only me. My pulse hammered as I leaned forward again. There was my face, and next to it, another, taller, featureless. The fog swirled around its outline, making it look half-formed, as though it had only just emerged from the water. I scrambled back on the pier, my hands gripping the damp wood. My first instinct was to run, but something stronger held me there. Not fear, not curiosity this time, but a strange recognition. I didn't know the figure, couldn't even make out a face, yet some part of me whispered that it knew me, that it had been waiting. The reflection tilted its head, perfectly mirroring the movement I hadn't made. My body stiffened, frozen between the urge to flee and the impossible pull of whatever this was. The fog thickened, curling around the pier until the shore vanished, leaving me suspended in a world of dark water and white mist. And then, faintly, I heard it. A voice, not out loud, inside me. Quiet, steady, like a memory I'd forgotten, but suddenly recalled. "You came." The words echoed inside my head, faint but undeniable. "You came." I froze, gripping the pier, so hard my knuckles ached. I wanted to tell myself it was just imagination, the result of exhaustion or too much silence. But the weight of those two words pressed against me with an unnatural certainty. They weren't mine. The shadow in the water leaned closer. My reflection did not. Its faceless head hovered above the surface, inches from mine, though nothing disturbed the lake. No ripple, no splash. My chest tightened. Instinct screamed at me to get up and leave, but something deeper pulled me down, kept me rooted to the wood like an anchor. "Who are you?" I whispered. Though the sound barely carried past my lips, the fog responded first. It shifted, thickening behind the figure, spreading outward until it felt like the whole world was swallowed in it. Then the water stirred again. Not a ripple this time, but a low vibration that thrummed through the pier, into my legs, into my chest. My own heartbeat felt out of sync, as though I were being forced to match another rhythm. The voice came again. You know me, and God help me. Part of me believed it, that I searched my memory, desperate to make sense of it. No face, no name surfaced. But I couldn't shake the feeling that the lake had been waiting specifically for me, that my wandering feet tonight had not been random at all. The figure raised an arm in the water's reflection, pointing toward the center of the lake. My body moved before I could resist. I stood on shaking legs and stepped carefully off the pier into the reeds. The mud clutched at my shoes, and the cold water soaked my ankles, but I couldn't stop. It felt like sleepwalking, terrifying, yet impossible to fight. The further I waited, the heavier the air became. The night sounds were gone entirely now, replaced by a deep silence broken only by that unnatural breathing of the water. The moonlight barely penetrated the mist. My world had shrunk to a narrow circle. The shifting fog, the dark water, and a shadow that now seemed to walk beside me in every reflection I dared glance at. Halfway to the center, the bottom dropped away. I gasped, water rising to my chest as the ground vanished under my feet. Panic flared. I couldn't swim well, never had. But instead of thrashing, I found myself floating unnaturally, the water supporting me, guiding me forward without effort. My fear battled against the strange calm wrapping around me like invisible arms. Finally, I reached it, the exact center of the lake. I knew it instinctively, though there was no marker, no sign. The water here was perfectly still, as if sealed. Even a mist seemed to hover motionless above it. That's when I saw the circle. Beneath the surface, faintly glowing in pale blue, lines formed a shape. Not natural, not random. A perfect ring carved into the darkness, pulsing softly like a heartbeat. Symbols I couldn't recognize curled along its edges, shifting every time I blinked, as if alive. The figure appeared again in the reflection, but clearer now. It wasn't faceless anymore. It wore my face, that my stomach dropped. I reached up, touched my cheek. The reflection smiled. I did not. The voice returned, stronger now, filling every part of me. You are me. I am you. You came back. No. I choked out, shaking my head violently. That's not me. You're not. But the reflection didn't stop. Its lips moved without my own. You belong here. The water beneath me stirred, the glowing circle brightening. For a brief, horrifying moment, I felt my own body shift. My reflection's grin tugging at my mouth, my arms rising against my will. The lake wanted me. No, it was taking me. I fought, thrashing in the water. The illusion of calm shattered. The weight of it pressed me down, the cold biting deeper than flesh, straight into my bones. The mist closed tighter, blinding me. I screamed, but the sound died instantly, swallowed by the lake. And then, silence again. Heavy, suffocating. I opened my eyes. The reflection was gone, but the glowing circle remained, waiting patiently beneath me. Not yet. The voice whispered softly, almost tender. But soon. I tried to swim back. My arms cut through the water with desperate strokes. But every movement dragged me deeper instead of forward, like the lake itself had decided which direction I should go. The glowing circle below pulsed brighter, drawing me downward, pulling me toward its center. The mist throbbed with it. Each pulse bent the air, vibrating in my chest until I thought my ribs would crack. My lungs burned. I kicked harder, fighting for the surface, for escape, for anything that wasn't down. But the more I resisted, the more the lake seemed to grip me. My clothes weighed like chains, my own body betraying me, dragging me further toward the light. And then the voice returned, not outside but inside my skull. Stop struggling. You asked to know. You came to remember. I wanted to scream back that I hadn't asked for anything, that I'd only wandered here by accident. But even in the chaos, part of me questioned that. Why'd I really come? Why this lake this night? Why did the name of this place taste so familiar on my tongue, though I couldn't recall ever speaking it aloud? The glow erupted, brighter than the moon, flooding my eyes. For a heartbeat, I could see everything. The entire lake from above, suspended in endless blackness. And in the center, beneath me, something vast stirred. It wasn't just water. The lake had a body, a shape beneath the surface, impossibly large, stretching far beyond the boundaries I knew. A presence older than the forest, older than the ground I had walked on. And it was awake. My chest screamed for air. I flailed upward, breaking the surface for a second, gasping, choking, spitting. The mist pressed against my face like hands, trying to shove me back down. I clawed at nothing, desperate. That's when I heard it. Not a whisper this time, not a voice in my head. A cry. It came from the trees on the far side of the lake. Low at first, then sharper. A human cry, raw and panicked. My blood ran cold. Someone else was here. Help! I croaked, my voice hoarse, barely carrying across the water. I'm here! The cry echoed, repeating itself. But there was something wrong in the sound. It was too exact. Each call identical. No breaks, no difference in tone. Like a recording played over and over again. The figure appeared again. Not in the reflection this time. In the water with me, it rose from the glowing circle below, shape solidifying into a body. My body, my face. Except this one's eyes were wide, mouth stretched unnaturally. Water streamed endlessly from its lips, as though it were drowning even while above the surface. It reached for me. Panic exploded through me. I kicked backward, away from the center, ignoring the burn in my lungs, the cramp in my legs. The thing moved with me, every stroke mirrored, except faster, smoother. No struggle, just inevitability that I screamed. The sound tore my throat raw, but the mist swallowed it instantly. The glowing circle surged, and for a heartbeat, everything inverted. I wasn't in the lake anymore. I was below it looking up. I saw myself thrashing on the surface, gasping for air, eyes wild. My double swam toward that version of me with calm, measured strokes that I blinked, and I was back in my own body, still fighting, still failing. But the terror of that moment branded itself into me. It wasn't just chasing me. It was trying to replace me. The cry from the forest came again. Louder this time. Clearer. It wasn't calling for help anymore. It was calling my name. I froze. My body locked up, the water holding me still. My name echoed across the fog. Repeated, perfect, soulless. Over and over, the double reached me. Its hand broke the surface, slick and pale, and clamped onto my wrist. The grip was ice, colder than death, colder than anything I'd ever felt. My scream dissolved into choking water as it yanked me down, straight into the circle. The lake swallowed me whole. The cold was absolute. Not water, not air, something in between, crushing from every side. I couldn't tell if I was sinking or suspended, only that the light below me burned brighter, searing into my skull. My chest convulsed. No air left, only silence and the weight of something watching. The double dragged me downward. Its eyes glowed, faintly now, two pale lanterns in the dark. Its face, my face, was twisted into something almost human, but not quite. Its mouth never closed, just poured water endlessly into the void that I clawed at its grip, nails scraping against skin that wasn't skin at all. My fingers slipped every time, like trying to hold on to a nightmare. The harder I fought, the deeper it pulled me. Then the voice came back. Not a whisper now, but a chorus, hundreds of voices layered into one. They all spoke inside my head, using my tongue, my breath, my memory. You cannot fight what you are. The light expanded until I could no longer tell where it began or ended. And within that light, I saw shapes, silhouettes suspended in water, drifting slowly, endlessly. Dozens of them. Hundreds. Their faces were familiar, eerily so. Because every one of them was me. I saw myself at different ages. A boy, a teenager, a man older than I could imagine. All with my face. All with the same wide, drowning eyes. My double pulled me closer to the circle, and I realized what it was. Not a glow, not a portal, but a mirror. A vast, liquid mirror, reflecting 1,000 versions of me at once. You came back, the voices sang. You never left. My lungs gave up. Water poured in, scalding, freezing. I stopped fighting. For a moment, I felt nothing. No pain, no panic, just release. My double smiled, if you could call that expression a smile, and guided me into the mirror. The surface rippled. I braced for impact, but there was none. Instead, I passed through, and then silence. I stood at the edge of the lake again, dry, breathing. The mist was gone, the water calm, as if nothing had ever stirred. Moonlight spilled over the black surface, ordinary and quiet. For a moment, I thought I had imagined it all. A hallucination, a dream, a drowning panic that twisted itself into nightmare. My chest ached, but there was air in my lungs. My skin was warm. I was alive. I almost laughed. Almost. But then I saw it. The reflection in the water. It was me, but it wasn't. The face staring back had the same eyes, the same mouth, the same scar near the brow. But its lips moved on their own, forming words I couldn't hear. Its smile stretched wider, until it no longer looked human that I stumbled back, heart hammering. The surface rippled once, then stilled, leaving nothing but moonlight that I ran. I don't remember how I found the trail, how I crossed the field, how my legs carried me through the dark. Every step felt like falling. Every shadow leaned toward me, whispering my name. When I finally collapsed on my doorstep, the world looked unchanged. My house stood silent. My key still fit the lock. My bed still waited where I'd left it. But the mirror in my bathroom told another story. Because the face staring back didn't blink when I did. It smiled before I could. And as I write this, as I see the words form on the page, I realize something else. My reflection isn't just copying me anymore. It's writing too.